actually. But it's a little annoying because I discovered a bug in Blender default that's going to press E to extrude and then immediately click to confirm that extrusion. So if I were to press Alt S to do shrink fatten, so like this, it pulls this stuff out here, which is cool, but notice here, like around the edges where like this point's coming out and a few things like that. Most of the time when I'm using this tool, I don't want this to happen. I want this to be basically to scale out, to shrink, fatten, whatever you want to call it, in a uniformed way. And you're supposed to be able to do that by default. There's supposed to be a setting, but it's not currently working. And there's actually no way for me to code it to work that way by default. So currently, if I press Control Z and do it again, currently you have to either hold Alt after pressing the hotkey to get this to do uniform like this, or you can tap S so you don't have to hold a key. But not being able to get this to perform like this by default is currently prohibiting me from building some new extrusion tools that I'm really excited about. But I have reported this, and as far as I can tell, the developers are working on fixing it for the next version. I'm thinking there's going to be a 2.79b, so that will be good. Hopefully we won't have to wait all the way to 2.8 to get that fixed. Because here's something I want to do. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I really think that the extrusion tool, which we can click on different things and then extrude stuff, would be really well suited to have an automatic feature similar to what happens when you extrude depth in with the inset tool. So for instance, if I delete that and say add a cylinder. So right now, if I wanted to, say, extrude the entire ring of this base out here, what I would need to do is space for face selection, Alt select all these faces. What I would need to do, if I just pressed E to extrude, it would do this, which is not great. So I'll press Control Z to undo that. So what I would need to do is press Shift E to begin an inset, and then you can hold Control to basically extrude the depth value. If you look down here, while I'm trying to point down there, I can't look just below where my cursor is. See this 3D view header menu with all these little words and stuff on it? This is actually telling us different buttons we can press, which I always forget about. But so here it says depth, control to tweak, and you see that number is like 0.54649 or something. Yeah, right now we have to press Shift E and then another key to get the depth value to go out. And I think this would be a lot cooler if we could just, in the same way when we have one or two things selected, press E to extrude, that it would basically just extrude the depth out like that. And that would be much more natural to your brain because there's so often I'll end up doing this routine. I'll press E to extrude, and then right click to cancel, and then Alt S to shrink fatten this, and then press S again to get it to have even thickness. Or of course the other way is what I just showed. You would have to Alt select Shift E and then hold Control to go out, and it doesn't need to be that cumbersome. Okay, so one other thing you may have noticed that looks a little different is in this edit menu up here. You'll see there's now this little cube button by duplicate and separate. Okay, so ages ago I came up with this tool in edit mode called Object from Selection. There's actually a video dedicated to it in the crash course. And the idea, original mesh that it came from, it's actually different, as you can see a little bit here. And the reason for that is because when you're using modifiers like subsurface modifiers, if I were to say just say duplicate this piece of mesh here, you can see immediately that when I did, the shape of it changes because it's relevant to the way the other parts of the mesh are treating that mesh. So that feature of object from selection is called advanced object from selection, which you can activate or deactivate here. And that is why the new object that was created from the selection looks the way it's supposed to, where the other one got all immediately like way too long and stuff. Anyway, so for the longest time, or at first, I had this up here, and to do this, instead of pressing Shift D, I had this duplicate button, which would
hello everyone, my name
do the object from selection. It was called ob-from-cell, which looked really bad, so I just changed it to duplicate, but then that was kind of confusing. So finally I've come up with a system I really like, which is if this button is off, the duplicate and separate buttons, or basically, rather than it being a object from selection being a button you press, it's now a mode which can affect the duplicate and separate buttons. And this way, these buttons do what you expect them to do by their namesake. So for instance, you delete that and go back to this original object here. So if object from selection is not on and we just have this loop of faces selected here and we press duplicate, it's just going to do a standard duplicate.
Now to check it out.
Or if we press separate and it's not on here, notice that it just will separate this from the mesh,
along with troubleshooting,
and you can do this while staying inside the mesh, and that's pretty cool and useful. However, if we go ahead and Control Z to undo all that,
places where you can help us out as well. In this video,
if we turn on object from selection, it will do the Shift D object from selection.
To get to these options, go ahead and hit
so basically this means duplicate into a new object, so duplicate.
You have a lot of different preset
so,
options here, and they organize it a lot easier.
Or separate and duplicate into a new object. So say for instance, I wanted all this stuff here to be separated and to form into a new object. Press that, and
then I'm going to hit
the
asterisk key there as well. And if I mouse over that, key combination shared.
Okay, on the draw mesh front, we've got a little bit of progress on that, and still working on it, still a little ways to go, but we now have shape completion, so basically
multiple keys for combinations using these plus and minuses.
You can just straight up draw shapes. So if I were to say like do like this,
hyphen is going to start and stop recording.
I've now just created a shape which looks circular because we've got that subsurface modifier. We can take that off.
Switch to
but as you see there, it looks a bit more like how I just drew it, which is pretty cool. We can turn on snap to grid.
So I'm going to clear these out. That you have that's not in the normal
something out like this.
OBS. Is that you can actually show and hide your individual sources, which you could not easily do in the original OBS.
And there you go.
So
yeah, still working on that. Want to get all these features nicely smooth and working together. And yeah, that's all I've got for now. I'll see you guys in the next video.
That's not where I want it. There we go. Sure. Puppy picture. And my desktop. Okay. Now if I go back into my hotkey settings, what I can do is individually show and hide these sources in my scene, which is freaking crazy. So not only can you switch between your scenes, so if I have a bunch of different scenes set up, I can set up a bunch of different hotkeys to switch between those scenes, but I can actually turn off the individual sources that are displaying in that scene. So if I hit number 8 for that one, and number 9 for that one, and click apply, and click OK, then when I hit 8, it turns off that. If I hit 9, it turns off the picture. If I turn off 8, it's madness. It's crazy, and I love it. Okay, I'm done geeking out right now. But literally, you have hotkeys to turn off your individual sources. And then same thing for all the individual audio devices that we added in the previous tutorial. You can mute and unmute and push to mute and push to talk all of those individual sources. So you have pretty much unlimited flexibility with your hotkeys here. So go ahead and learn your way around them, and remember reverting if you accidentally hit a hotkey and you don't want it there, it'll put it back to the previous one. Clearing it out clears it out completely, and then use the plus and minuses to create multiple key combinations so you're not just using up all of your keys on your keyboard. That's hotkeys in a nutshell. Let's take a look at the advanced settings real quick. There's not a whole lot you need to worry about here. There's an audio buffering time, which if you have